California. This is Revolution. And on this episode, I'm sharing with you guys, I was trying something new. You have to excuse me, I'm getting a crazy allergy attack as I record this. I had reached out to Lisha Brooks, sister of the, I'm going to say legendary Michael Brooks. What a amazing presence on the left that we lost last year. But Lisha is trying to keep that legacy alive. She's doing the Michael Brooks Legacy Project. And I wanted to talk to her about that. I actually talked to her about her own life. You know, she's a writer in Hollywood. And she also was in a really kind of hilarious mockumentary that I like called American Vandal. So if you've ever seen American Vandal, it's very silly humor, extremely childish humor. She's got a small credited part. She's like the voice on the phone towards the end. So watch it and you'll hear her voice if you're used to her in the podcast sphere. But anyway, we had done an interview. It just didn't work out right. It didn't click. She goes, let's try something again. And I said, what? I got an idea. We're going to review a movie. Because I do want to start doing, if you've listened to, and there's very few of you that have been here since the beginning. But originally this was something that I did with my band, and we definitely tried to infuse pop culture more with certain things that were going on in politics to try to educate. And I miss a little bit of that. and recently I was on the Ben Burgess show, and I kind of convinced him that, let's re-examine RoboCop as a kind of how-to manual of neoliberalism. If people hear the term and they don't understand it, you can always point to RoboCop and go here, and then we broke the movie down and talked about that. And so I wanted to do something similar on my show, but always going to be a little different on my end, the way I see doing it. And I have an idea for a movie for me and Lisha to talk about. And she sends me a message and she goes, I got it. Nomadland. Watch Nomadland. We'll discuss that. That's all she said. So I didn't know what angle she wanted to hit with it. So I actually found the movie accidentally. I was going to start looking for it, and one day, as my girlfriend and I are looking for something to watch, I find the movie accidentally, and I watched it on my own, alone. And it is about a woman, Frances McDermott. The actress plays a woman whose husband has died. She's a widow, and she lives she's from a real place. Empire, Nevada was a real company town that was run by U.S. Gypsum, a mining company. And when that mining company decided to pack up and leave, in real life they gave the residents 5 months to figure shit out, and they actually closed the town down. And everybody had to go, and the zip code actually got erased. So there's literally a ghost town in I want to say northern Nevada called Empire. And that's where our story starts. The story starts as a very moving scene of a woman kind of taking what she can out of a storage unit, putting it in a van, and just taking off. And the next scene we see is the star of the movie in an Amazon facility. And now I'm sure there's some places in Nevada with large warehouses that are shut down that a Hollywood crew, because this is a major film, could go in and make look like any warehouse. You don't have to call it Amazon. But they actually went into a major Amazon warehouse, And it starts off, they're all happy, and they're having a safety meeting, and she's like bouncing around the fucking warehouse, and it looks like the opening scene in Laverne and Shirley and shit. And I was like, this story sounds familiar, but this is nothing like the story I remember, because I remember watching the actual author of the book, Nomadland, and of course I forgot the name of the book, talk about going undercover and working in Amazon warehouses and working for the Park Service and doing the sugar beet harvest and doing all these jobs with these people that live in vans, and actually talking about the town the woman goes to. In the movie, it comes off a little culty, but it's not like that in real life. In Quartzsite, Arizona, another place I've been to several times. And, you know, as you'll hear in the show, we talk about the movie, but Lisha actually didn't know that much about the book. And most people don't. You know, you watch a movie, it's based on a book, and these based on true story movies a la Judas and the Black Messiah make people think this is the story. I am watching the story sans a few names. And that's not the case at all, like we saw with Judas and the Black Messiah. And this movie is, in my opinion, was kind of antithetical to the book. It was manifest destiny wrapped in American exceptionalism, you know, a tale of rugged individualism. It definitely wasn't the real tale of a growing population of Americans, you know, 55 and up, as the author explains in the clip you're going to hear as I fade to the show. Of people that don't have retirement, don't have savings, and literally can't live off any sort of Social Security they get. So and coupled with the fact that several people, lots of people, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, lost everything in 2008, including their homes. So companies like Amazon have taken advantage of this and created a new, like, itinerant workforce of the elderly. And this movie portrays that workforce as like almost like a vanguard, and not as a failure in our society to take care of the elderly. So without any further ado, I'm not going to talk too long. This is the episode about our review of Nomadland. And I think we're going to start doing more reviews. I don't know if we're going to keep doing it with Lisha. She's a busy person. But there's definitely more movies that I know Pascal and I want to interrogate. If you guys have any ideas for movies, let us know. I would love to hear what movies you guys would like to hear us review. There's a new Billie Holiday movie that I haven't checked out that I told Pascal about that we should review. So we'll see if we can end up watching that and review that. And also, side note, Flint Taylor is probably coming back on the show. He's one of Fred Hampton's lawyers, so keep your eye out for that. So I'll plug it again. Tuesday, Thursday, we do live stream, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Saturday, for me, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we do a live stream with Marcus of the Left Flank Vets. And Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Pascal and I go on the Left Flank Vets Twitch stream and do a show. There's going to be links to all that in the description of this show. So definitely subscribe to the YouTube page. If you haven't done it already, become a patron. If you can, if you'd like to help and see the show grow. We've added definitely some incentives. We're building out the website to add some fun This is Revolution merchandise that's just more for the show. The merchandise we have now is actually for the band. This is Revolution is a lyric to a song kind of throughout the first EP of the band Bitter Lake, and the person that put together the look of the show said that's what you should call it, and I'll make all these designs for it, and yada yada yada. So that's why I actually had a little bit of, I would say, merchandise for it, but it's definitely the band centered. But I'll shut up now. So here is my discussion with Lisha Brooks about our take on the movie Nomadland.
You've written an amazing new book called Nomadland, Surviving America in the 21st Century. Just take us on a journey there for a moment as we open this conversation.
Absolutely. So Nomadland tells the stories of a growing group of Americans for whom what we consider that traditional retirement promise did not materialize. People who are at the bottom of the income bracket, people who either lived paycheck to paycheck for much of their lives, largely a consequence of depressed wages, and couldn't save, or got wrecked by the 2008 recession, and on account of flat wages and rising housing costs, found that they had to give up traditional, what nomads would call stick and brick housing, and take to the road in late model RVs and vans and travel trailers and sometimes a few sedans, working jobs all over the country seasonally to make ends meet. These are people who are trying to determine another way, who basically realized that if they stayed in traditional housing, those costs would eat up everything they have, and they would work until they dropped dead, which is...
I think we have a couple of photos from the book. I don't know if we have them ready to go. They should have been...
Oh, I think I was to cue the first one.
Well, we're going to forget the photos. Oh, there we go. So tell us about these real quickly.
Yeah, so just a few of the faces I met on the road. This is Samir and Mr. Pico, his chihuahua. When we talk about people getting pushed out of traditional housing for all sorts of reasons, Samir's retirement dream was actually running a halal goat farm. The drought pushed hay prices up, and that's why Samir's on the road. This is Iris and her parrot Casper. Iris works for Amazon's Camper Force program, which is kind of seasonal geriatric migrant labor. Essentially, they hire people, many of them at or nearing traditional retirement age, to do pick and pack in the months leading up to Christmas while staying in their RVs. And this is Linda May, who realized that with $499 a month in Social Security and working as an unpaid caregiver, both for her mom and for as the single mother of two daughters herself, she did not have significant savings, and in this picture, she is campground hosting, helping do maintenance up at Big Bear in California.
Would you say, I mean, I'm going to jump to Vivian in just a moment, but before we do that, is just to ask you, as a new dimension of retirement, is what you discovered and saw about this mobile migrant elder workforce a sizable part of the retired workforce, or is this, sort of a boutique? I mean, in terms of, give us some scale, if you will, for what you were observing.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a rapidly growing subculture, particularly in the wake of 2008. But in my mind, it is the tip of the iceberg, and what the iceberg looks like is the nearly 1 in 3 households that have no pension or no retirement savings, headed by people 55 and older, which is quite a big group. So then you see people coping with that in different ways. So when we're looking at people coping at it in this way, in terms of people living on the road full time, that's in the hundreds of thousands. And in terms of this very specific demographic, elders who are working and on the road full time and have given up traditional housing, that's at least in the tens of thousands, and that's a conservative estimate. So.
Vivian.
All right. That was a clip from Jessica Bruder, the actual writer of the book Nomadland. It's a movie that we're going to be reviewing today. I'm going to be reviewing it with my special guest co-host of the day. You may know her from the Michael Brooks Project, Lisha Brooks.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining me. I almost said you may know her from her role in what was it? American? Oh, what is it called? The one we're talking about, the mockumentary.
The American Vandal. I don't know if
Yes.
anyone would know me from that though, because it's just my voice. But maybe in the podcast universe, potentially.
American Vandal.
Yeah.
So Lisha and I had spoke, and we were supposed to do an interview, and we kind of changed our mind to do something a little more fun. And we were talking about movies, and she recommended to me this movie called Nomadland, and I hadn't heard of it. And then it showed up. My girlfriend was watching Hulu one day, and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's the Lisha movie." And I watched it, and I actually watched it twice, and it didn't hit me that 3 years prior, I'd actually seen several interviews with the writer of the book, Nomadland, and watching the movie kind of reminded me that I was like, this kind of reminds me of this book, but it seems like a nicer version of the book. So beautifully shot, award-winning film, really captures a part of America that I feel is kind of forgotten. Felt a little like what did I think I called it, Manifest Destiny wrapped in American exceptionalism. A lot of, well, Lisha, you tell me what you thought about it. Let me shut up.
All right. Well, I'm probably gonna just like rant for a couple minutes and then
That's fine, man.
Okay. So I actually went into this film knowing nothing about it. I had like avoided previews. I was not familiar that there even was a book. And the first couple minutes of the film, I'm thinking like, wow, this is potentially going to be, something really cool. And then the first big warning sign is they're allowed to use Amazon's actual graphics.
Yes.
And I was like, uh-oh.
Yes.
So let's see. So basically, for anyone who's watching right now, we're going to be probably giving away plot points. So if you want to watch the film without having, spoilers, I'm about to do some spoilers.
I'll give you a spoiler right now. Capitalism wins.
Yes. And so, to begin with, we get let in on this really interesting, sorry, I'm going to probably use some like annoying sort of like industry language, but like this really interesting world. So this town of Empire has been shut down.
Yeah, real place.
And you can tell they're very proud. They use a very subtle, delicate font. It's very somber. I think it was some industrial mill. I forget what they were manufacturing. Shuts down.
Gypsum.
Rocks. That's what they're okay. And so I'm already thinking like, at first I'm like, okay, this is going to be about this woman who is, I don't know, in her 60s and has no home anymore in this industrial town she's lived. And we're going to be watching this gritty movie of her like commuting to work at this like horrible Amazon warehouse. I'm thinking it's going to be, and so we see her, get her things from a storage unit.
That was a rough scene.
That's
how the movie opens.
Oh, and you think it's gonna be this like, oh man. And then we see her, it's winter, it's cold. She's, living in this RV at this RV ground, and we hear, oh, Amazon has paid for your spot through the week. Okay, like they might pay for people's, RV living for seasonal work. I don't doubt that, but it was just like so like, oh, listen to this nice thing Amazon did. I'm like, okay. And then the first scene we see that she's in this warehouse. And everyone is just so happy in this warehouse. We don't see anyone.
The safety meeting in the morning.
Oh yeah, why do we hold on to 3 points of contact? Like, like fun safety meeting, lots of goofing in the warehouse. And I started to just feel like, oh shit, like this is a very dangerous way of presenting this type of labor and this type of poverty, because for the types of people who watch this film, especially like in Los Angeles, there's this kind of like, I just think it kind of starts to, and we'll move slower, and I'm just going to hit a few more things, and then obviously I'll shut up for a minute. But it's this very dangerous idea that throughout the film, I'll just say this before I get there. So throughout the film, our protagonist, and by the way, Frances why am I forgetting her last name? McDormand.
Yeah.
I could probably like watch her eat yogurt or look at a wall and it would be interesting. She's just an innately interesting performer. She has like this quality that's very intriguing to watch. So, her performance is a good performance, but at times it felt like a little bit like she was a little proud of herself for doing such a good job as a poor person. Don't forget, Frances is a very wealthy, very famous actress who's in this great lane of being the one
to a Coen brother.
Yes. And she has this really good brand where she didn't get plastic surgery. And part of the reason she didn't get plastic surgery is because she just like looks good getting handsome. Women get more handsome as they age. Some women get puffy and bloated. They want plastic surgery. Frances has a great look. It's working for her. That's a sidebar.
Okay. So can I add to your sidebar though, before you finish? Just want to add to your sidebar about her. So I read some of the notes on Internet Movie Database.
Yeah.
Apparently, she did live for a short time in a van.
I'm sure.
When they were filming, she was staying in a van. And then at some point she said, fuck it. And she said, and I quote, "It's easier to pretend you're tired."
Yeah. Being actually tired is a real bummer. And so... throughout the film, basically, Frances keeps having these like moments we get to in the film where it's like, she's living in a van. And the first thing that happened is it's really cold. She's in, I think, Utah. Is that where it starts out? Or
Nevada.
Nevada? Okay.
Northern Nevada, yeah.
And she like doesn't have any money to stay at the RV park, which costs $375 a month. But she does have the resources to like very quickly get to like Arizona or like somewhere more warm.
Which is super far.
Very far, a lot of gas, it does show her like sleeping at for free on the side of the road. It definitely kind of gets into the grit of this journey. It's not like super glazed over, but it does feel like she there's just this kind of theme throughout the film. Like at one point, she's having trouble finding jobs. And then for the rest of the movie, she just seamlessly goes from selling rocks to being the one and only paid bathroom attendant at the campground or, working the beet harvest. And it just feels like all of a sudden we've like set up this idea that like, it's hard to get a job, but you can get a job. And that was like one thing where I was just like, okay. And then the other thing I wanted to hit on was when she gets into serious trouble, like when her van breaks and she needs $2,500, we finally see her just in a backpack on the street heading towards a bus. And, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this is like really going to get real for her. No, she immediately is at her sister's house, who gives her $2,500 in cash, no problem, and invites her to stay with her. And we get that it's a little interpersonally awkward between them, but like, they're kind of annoying, like neoliberals talking about like Bitcoin or whatever, but like, it's fine. Like there is a safety net there. And then again, at another juncture in the film, she has this other huge safety net of, my dream house in Big Sur. She has this opportunity to stay there. And I'm not saying that like, oh, she definitely should have stayed there. Everyone should stay, even if it's not comfortable. I'm just saying that the thing that I found so dangerous about this film was it created this idea of like our protagonist is like basically like the 1% of these retirees in vans or not working, elders in vans. And she has like, it's almost like the filmmaker couldn't like mentally push herself to the idea of someone truly not having anyone who has $2,500 in their life. And that being the end, or that being like the danger, or like not being able to get a job and that's it. And I guess like that sort of subconscious idea, I just think is so dangerous because I think a lot of normies are going to watch this film. And when they see people in Los Angeles living in vans, I think it kind of puts this like nasty subtext of like, oh, it's like they could move into their brother-in-law's house and they're kind of doing their own thing and they're gritty like Frances. And that was like the thing that I just was like deeply disappointed because this film could have been a big wake-up call. And it created this like weird, like, yeah, but like they choose to live in vans.
as my friend Marcus says about movies that deal with the military, if you watch the movie in the barracks, like in the mess hall, then it's a pro-military movie. So
Okay.
Full Metal Jacket, right? As we might think it's an anti-war film, when he's like, dude, we watched that in the mess hall. That's not an anti-war film. That's how I felt about a movie like this, and even going back to movies like Judas and the Black Messiah, when I call that an anti-revolutionary film. I look at this movie and I thought it was very, very pro American grit and determination. So the book actually centers around the elder people that we actually see. So I want people that watch this movie to keep one thing in mind. The majority of characters that you see in this movie, I think there's 2 or 3 actual actors. Everyone else is a real person.
Yeah. And they use their real names,
And
and
they
one
use
of them
their
dies.
real names.
And her real name, it's like Lisha Brooks is dead.
Like they use their
Very
real
strange.
names. And I was telling Lisha off air, I was like, I recognize the Linda woman, and I don't remember exactly where I recognize her from, but I recognize her from. So as I was telling Lisha, I lived in a vehicle as well for a little under a year with my ex doing music. And I don't say living it like we toured and went back to an apartment. No, we literally lived in a van, and we had
Why didn't
gym
you go to your
memberships.
sister's house? She could have given you $2,500 in an envelope.
You know what's funny? So we did have some friends, actually some really good friends that had an apartment that every so often they'd be like, if you guys want to get out of the van for a little bit, you can stay. And the movie talks about things called the knock, where police officers will come knock and tell you can't stay somewhere. And that actually happened to us. We were staying in, I'll tell you one short story before I start ripping into this movie. We had stayed in a rental car because we were saving, this is going to sound weird, we were saving money to buy a van. And we were working a kind of shitty job for Microsoft. And we were staying in not at the best area. And we finally had saved enough money to buy a little town and country van. And so we had this van we were staying in, and this was like the winter, so we weren't touring at the time. Okay. We were just working this bullshit job until we were going to go tour in like March, and this is like December. And it was the first night that we could stretch out in the van, and we were all stoked. And as we're in it, I just remember like rolling over and being like, oh, this is so comfortable. And as soon as I said that, you get boom, 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 flashlights, and we have to get out of the car. And I was pissed off because they made me sit on the ground. I'm like, look, dude, you treat me like a fucking criminal, and we're not criminals. And they were like, do you know what goes on around here? I was like, I don't know, crime. I was like, I'm not a criminal. He's like, well, and there's like a woman got beat up over there. I was like, okay, well, sorry for her, but we're over here. Yeah, like I'm not trying to buy dope. I don't have any guns. I don't have any money. No one's fucking with us over here. And the cop was they were kind of like weirded out because they said, you guys don't seem like the type of people that would do this. I was like, I don't know what that means. And so we finally go, we're musicians, because I think we had like guitars in the car, and then they didn't believe us.
Oh, you're the prop instruments. It's a classic. It's a classic criminal move.
Didn't believe us, and so so there's 2 cops, and one cop goes, "Well, what's the name of your band?" We tell him the name, Le Fin Absolute du Monde. And the guy looks up, he goes, and he sees us. He sees a picture of us.
He Googles
Apple. Yeah, on Apple. Yeah, he went on like iTunes, and he goes, "Holy shit!" He goes, "He's not lying." And I was like, "Yeah, we wouldn't lie." And the guy goes, and we had just done like a European tour earlier that year, so there's all footage of us overseas and shit.
Right.
And so the guy goes, "Oh," and he bought, the cop ends up buying our record, and they let us go. And he says, just don't stay here. It's not really safe here. And we ended up finding a place to stay that was a little bit better, but there were certain parts of the movie that definitely hit home with me because, again, much like Judas and the Black Messiah, beautifully shot film. And they kind of give you a new version of Manifest Destiny, and they're using this new itinerant workforce, which is the elderly that have been displaced, many of them by 2008. 2008 is where I lost everything. My mom is on this chat. She'll tell you I
Mhm.
had a very nice homes, lost it all in '08.
Mhm.
So I get the people that were kind of forced into this workforce to work for
Yeah.
Amazon. The Park Service also contracts out that help. So the irony of this movie, as you point out, I think very rightly, Leash, is
Yeah.
is that we see this woman hop from job to job. Yeah, the cop did buy the album, and you see her do it so effortlessly because this is a culture.
Mhm.
As the woman that actually wrote the book, Jessica Bruder, tells us, it's a culture to go from job to job. But what you don't see with the Amazon, and Alicia wasn't lying when you watch the film, it starts off they're having a safety meeting at Amazon and everyone's happy. And then it transitions into a lunch and everyone's just, they're sitting down and enjoying themselves.
And they're goofing around on the floor like, hey, like, what's up,
Yeah.
girl? And
It's
like,
like,
we read these horror stories of like not even having time to use the bathroom because you're on the clock and you're timed and it's so far away in the warehouse. By the time you get back to your position, you're being doxxed for pay for taking too long of a break. I mean, these conditions are
injuries.
horrific.
The
And
injuries
yeah.
people are getting. I wish I should have sent this to Chris Smalls. The injuries people are getting, the repetitive injuries these older people are getting. The writer of the book describes a very different post-work day. She goes, a lot of these people's vans look like apothecaries. She goes, they
Mm,
have Epsom salts and aspirin and all
yeah.
kinds of ibuprofen
Mm.
because these are older people. So the court site scene. So okay, we're going to tell you about there is no cliffhangers in the film. Like I jokingly said, capitalism wins in the end, or rugged individualism wins in the end. Um, After the woman works at Amazon and her time is up, which is this is seasonal work for about 3 to 4 months. In reality, it's up to the Christmas season that they hire this camper force. So they literally go out and recruit elderly people that don't have work anymore, that don't have the savings. And that's why I opened up with that clip, because I really want it to sink into people's heads the reality of this film and not the beauty of the scenes and the landscape. The reality is there are so many people that are living check to check that do not have a pension, that do not have enough on Social Security that can sustain them.
Yeah, which they tell, but they don't show.
No.
There's a scene where the woman's like, I don't have enough because of my Social Security, but then she also seems to have a savings where she's able to own a piece of property. She's going to build a small house. Like it's this weird, it's this very sneaky trick where it's like, I'm telling you this thing, but the reality is not as dark, and it kind of soothes people who have like a guilty conscience around this or feel more like, other 60-year-olds sitting with their significant others watching this film being like, oh, but it's so beautiful and she is free, and like, oh, it's kind of rough, but she does have this sister. It's like that constant negotiation
It's
between the
yes.
fable and the truth.
It's like it's almost, they could have called the movie Freedom, because ultimately that's kind of what it looks like. Like she's this woman. There's a great
Yeah.
scene where she's talking to her sister, and as Lisha said, she needs $2,500 to fix her van. I've had a van break down in Austin, Texas, and we needed $1,500 to fix the van and did not have it.
Mm.
And a very, very nice family helped us out and actually paid for the van to get fixed. And the van, we rode it literally till the shit broke again in the middle of North Dakota. and we couldn't keep fixing it, which is a reality of doing this shit.
Totally. And like, I don't mean to like be overly like reductive or like say that there aren't nuance and complication and like reasons why someone wouldn't want to live with family. Or is this your mom, Pamela Davis?
Yeah.
Hello. Hello, Jason's mom. I just had a face pop up and I was like, this is mom.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that everything is like so like this or that. I just thought this like this weaving and this like strange like not spoken safety net that just does not exist just was really alarming to me. And I'm not saying like someone can't take to the road, and like I'm sure there are beautiful stories, like, you know, the woman who is dying of cancer in the film. You know, she obviously felt really, she seemed like she was maybe like a little autistic or didn't have like the strongest social ability, and she really just loved being in nature, and it seemed like she was really good at it. She was like a natural survivalist, like it was her jam. And I'm not like trying to say like that every single person, this is their experience, it's this way, but the fact that they like, I just can't get over. I mean, I really can only think of it as like the 1% of the van people.
So the writer of the book actually talks about a certain aspect of privilege that this culture has, because the majority of people that do it are white.
Right.
Because
well, in the movie, there's one black person.
There's one black girl.
Scene, 20 minutes in. What'd you name your van? I named it Paint because it's taking me where I ain't, I think is the one line spoken by a black person in the entire film. Yeah, no, it's very white.
And you see, and the reason why the author kind of wants to explain that to us is because in this world, traveling, you're going to get fucked with a little bit when you travel a lot by the police, regardless. And then you're a person of color, you're going to get fucked with even more. And then God forbid you pull over somewhere you're not supposed to be. You don't really want to get arrested for that. So,
right.
And also I think, I think the fact that they did it in a non-urban setting definitely backs up your point about, if I show this on the open road, if I show this beautiful Americana, again, manifest destiny, she's going to capture her freedom, you know, by any rugged individual means necessary. We miss the fact that, like you said, there are people that are living in their vans in the inner cities because they have to, for literally the same exact reasons.
Which they talk about, but it's very quick. It's like, and people who are living in the inner city, they need to be good at changing tires. Okay, the sunset. It's like, wait.
And then she eats breakfast on top of a canyon. And look, I've pissed off several canyons in the United States of America, and it's not that beautiful when you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is kind of like the hindsight perspective of someone struggling. And again, a big problem that I have with it, like you said, when you can see Amazon as Amazon, they could have shot in any, Lisha, you work in Hollywood, they could have got any fucking empty warehouse in northern Nevada. And trust me, there's a lot of empty shipping warehouses in northern Nevada.
You would have gotten it. You could have just used blue tape and a black hat. Yep. We would have been
fine.
No one would have been confused.
You got Amazon
weird.
To okay it. So part of the movie, Amazon is never mentioned in a negative light.
No, they pay for your RV parking.
Yeah. Oh, we Amazon paid for your RV parking through Thursday.
She says, I wrote it down. No, she says to someone, Amazon has such good pay. She says Amazon has good pay. The money's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, literally I think I choked. I was like, what?
I watched this movie and I was like, what is Lisha doing to me? Somebody asked the question. MJ asked the question. Don't black people not want to do this nomading because of how deadly it can be to park in random spots in this country? As a person, the pretty damn black that's been parking in random spots in the country, there's only a handful of places you really can't park. Oregon is not really good for van living unless you are comfortable with the woods. I'll be honest with you, MJ. I'm not comfortable with the motherfucking woods.
Yeah.
I get scared of wild animals and shit, so I'm not real comfortable with that kind of shit. And it's not fun to get fucked with by the police. And I think at the end of the day, they really feel real comfortable to fuck with certain groups of people. So there's a scene in the movie where they're in a town called Quartzsite, which I've been to too many times to count.
Where is that?
Quartzsite is in Arizona. It's on the border of Arizona, on like northern Arizona. What did McMindful say? I can't depend on collective workers' struggle. I can only depend on myself. This is transparently obvious psychological class warfare. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what this movie is. But what's interesting is this town in Quartzsite, what you see is a real place, and it's a real thing that people go to, that work these jobs at like Amazon
Mhm.
and the park jobs, and it's where they go to relax, and they're totally off the grid. I guess they have a series of solar panels that they use to cook with and get electricity, so they're like totally off the grid,
Mhm.
in this little town in Quartzsite. And again, the majority of people that you see in the film are real people. So that guy that you see talk about the town almost kind of comes off like a bit of a cult leader.
Mhm.
Didn't know McDormand was an actress. And when she told him the story about her husband passing away, which of course isn't true,
He
the
was really
name,
saying that his son's suicide. That's true.
yeah, that's true.
Wow.
He had no idea. So
That's a
there's
little
also kind of
manipulative.
there's a sick aspect of it
Yeah.
too, because you're using real people's
It's
pain
emotion. Yeah.
to make your story hit a certain part of people's feelings, where people are so disconnected with the group struggle and they're into the individual story. And that's another thing that I really didn't appreciate, because again, when you work in these environments, in reality you do become, and it kind of sort of shows that you do become a family. But for these elderly people, they're too scared to unionize, they're too scared to strike. You're talking about people that have already seen that, maybe even have done that, and maybe they were parts of unions before they retired, and they lost everything.
Mhm.
And you're living in either a van, and one thing the movie doesn't show is some people live in a car.
They talk about it. Or if I live in a Prius, ha 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 ha. I have to use a smaller bucket to shit in. Ha 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 ha.
That's real.
Right, but that's how it's
real.
handled.
And even the shit bucket thing is kind of looked at as almost like, so there's a scene where the woman is trying to explain to new people that are new to the life how you use a bucket to defecate in. And again, living in a warehouse across the street from a large homeless encampment before the city finally put porta potties in, which was a point of contention for me. It's like, look, man, if people have to use a bucket and there is no public restroom anywhere around they can use, it's dehumanizing to a certain extent. It's different when you choose to live in the middle of nowhere and you want to shit in a hole. That's different than when we have people that live in urban areas that are shitting in buckets and there's rats everywhere. You have the makings for the plague part 2.
Right. The like sadistic because San Francisco or Oakland doesn't have the money, lol. But but that's the part that like I never can quite wrap my head around, because you do knock up against ugly ideology with people and such just hateful whatever. But I never get it when it gets to the point of like a public health crisis. It's like, what? Like that just makes me think it's like just a massive Stanford prison experiment where they just like to see people suffer. Because I had this the other day. There was a man like, here in Los Angeles, he was in the middle of the street. He was rolling around the sidewalk, covered in his own feces, having like a serious mental break.
Yep.
And everyone just going to get their little sandwiches at the like, trendy little sandwich spot. And, everyone's just like avoiding him. And it was just like, okay, so, the best I can do is probably just call some version of the police, and that's probably going to escalate the situation. Like, there's nothing. There wasn't even like, oh, I tried talking to him. He wasn't really in a verbal state, but like, it's not even like, oh, I know this place where people can like use a restroom. In Los Angeles, there's this community in Echo Park of people living in tents.
Yes, I know
your
that.
friend
I know
from
the people.
K-Town for All probably mentioned this. Yeah. And they, in the middle of the pandemic, the depravity of this, locked the restrooms. There's built public restrooms, like with plumbing and everything. It's all set. And they would put a padlock on these restrooms so that people in that community couldn't use the bathroom or get water. I mean, who cares if it's a pandemic? I don't even know why I have to even mention that's a pandemic. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Why? Is it just simply because they are just so hateful of poor people? Like, is that simply what it is? I can't wrap my mind around what
you're fucking with the property value.
Right. But yeah, I guess like the idea is, oh, if you don't have a bathroom, you'll leave. Is that the thought process?
Yeah, I mean, if you're ever in the community where the city is trying to handle these problems, it's kind of, I don't want to say funny, but it's interesting the way they always want to approach it,
Mhm.
because as someone said that was recently on my show, if you're not trying to change the material conditions for people, then what are you
Mhm.
ultimately trying to do? And for example, we had a guy at the shelter I was at working, um, very similar to your roll around in his own feces guy. Just wouldn't stay in his room. He'd go off on what they called escapades.
Mhm.
Sometimes for a week, sometimes he'd be gone for like a month.
Oh, he was a nomad.
And there's nothing, and what's funny is like there's like nothing cute about it,
Right.
um and even though he had a room, people didn't take into consideration what this man dealt with throughout his life.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be gone for so long. I remember one day he came in to get dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and we thought he was someone from the street that wasn't supposed to be there.
Right.
Oh, the irony, right?
Right.
And so,
oh no, you're the approved street person that can be here.
This is for homeless people that we've approved are homeless enough to
oh,
be
you're
here.
a special homeless person. Okay.
You, sir,
Yeah.
are not homeless enough. And he was the security was trying to kick him out.
Right.
And I was like, oh, and he didn't speak. That doesn't make it easy. Finally, he spoke to me, and we had a little bit of a relationship. It was very, again, he's a odd man that had a very, very extreme life, to say the least.
I'm sure.
So he's not very trusting of people.
Of course not. Yeah.
Right. And so that's part of it that people don't understand. Like, I can't just throw you in a house or give you a tiny house or whatever the fuck I want to give you and say, all right, job well done. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's what a lot of the fixes are. It's like, well, let's throw them here. Job well done. So we don't have job placement. We don't have any sort of services for them mentally. Maybe we drop them off 3 shitty meals a day that make them feel like these are 3 shitty prison type meals a day.
Right.
Maybe. But I mean, that definitely, when I see these cats, especially now, it really fucks me up, because it's like I don't think people understand the totality of how the system is just designed kind of to keep spitting out the same person. And this movie, by showing you a woman who loses everything due to deindustrialization, which is a real thing. Again, Empire's a real town. There are real ghost towns in America. I wouldn't say go see them, because it's really sad shit to see.
Take a cute Instagram photo shoot there.
I'm
Wear a bikini.
You joke.
Chernobyl.
But if
they do slutty photo shoots at Chernobyl. It doesn't get darker than that.
There's dark shit that people think is funny or cute, and that shit's not funny or cute to me.
Yeah.
Because I've seen the real impact of what happens when these places close. And she was in one of these last of the mine towns with the character, where your home and everything in the town revolved around that mine. And when they decided to shut down, everything's gone. And there's a scene where she's trying to apply for a job, and they're asking her about like when she's worked, and everything she's done in her adult life has been in this mining town that she never wanted to leave. And these things are pretty remote. Let's keep that in mind. I mean, Reno, Nevada is pretty remote to me. So imagine Empire, Nevada. That's even more remote. You know what I mean? So, and Quartzsite in Arizona is a place that you would only know it if you rode Greyhound bus a lot. So it's not a tourist stop at all, which is why these people kind of congregate there. And the jobs that they do, like you're talking about working for the government when you're working for the National Park Service, but you're working through some third party agency that's paying you shit wages, that's cutting your pay to make sure they don't have to give you overtime. Like there's a lot the movie does.
I just thought of something so funny in the movie. Okay, so a lot of it's improvised, and there's like these subtle moments where Francis's like POV on the world comes through, and one of my favorite point of view on the world comes through, and one of my favorite is when she is working for, I guess, one, like you're saying, a third party contractor at this campground. And she has to go around. She makes like instant coffee in like this giant thermos, like shakes up. And she's going around and she's improvising. And she's like, "Oh, it's just black coffee." Like, "Oh, like, do you want coffee? There's no cream or sugar." I was like, I don't think anyone, like, clearly you're not carrying any cream or sugar. So like it's pretty obvious that it's just black coffee. But also, like, I just love that in this world she like can't really imagine like just black coffee being served. So she's like creating this whole thing around like, "Do you want it? It's just black."
Oh, I mean that's the real Francis
absolutely
coming out.
Cracked me up. I was like, yeah, I think everyone gets that it's black coffee being offered.
Black instant coffee.
It's like it's not like we don't do like cappuccinos or lattes or anything, but if you want some drip coffee, here it is.
We got to the point. We got to the point in our car when we were still in a car before we had a van. My ex got so truck stops sell the most amazing gadgets that regular people generally don't have, like water boilers,
like kind of like camping, like adjacent, stuff.
But stuff that you can plug into a cigarette lighter adapter.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So my ex who is Asian loves the noodles, and so she got this water boiler.
Imagine if I said that would go viral.
Well, I mean it's true. These are all things that are true. There's evidence to back this up. I think there's pictures of her eating.
Sam Harris has a chart. Look out.
Got you. The Great Awakening has ended. So we had a water boiler for noodles. So my friend Aaron Goforth just got on here. He's also a touring musician, and I stayed in an RV with Aaron for, what was that, Aaron? Like 2.5 months, which is actually where I met my ex, and we did music. But anyway, shout out Aaron. We had a water boiler in there, and that's how we would make. That's how she would eat. And instant coffee sometimes was a thing. We definitely stole a shit ton of creamers from the truck stops. What did that still mean? They're free.
I know what you mean.
It's funny how you hella make do in that world.
Yeah.
The dollar store is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this movie, I've never seen poverty romanticized to this level, and I've never seen
in this post
2021
that it's. I don't know if you feel this way. I feel like it has never been more like kind of like an emphasis on like sort of people crying out for this kind of thing to be dismantled in the mainstream in a way that I have not experienced in my lifetime.
We're on the cusp of unionizing Amazon to the point where Joe Biden hasn't really done or said much.
Corn Pop?
Corn Pop Joe is even like, these guys should be able to form a union if they want to form a union. And again, we'll see what happens.
He's very pro-union. Didn't you hear him say that?
I heard. But to your, like you said, to know that Amazon is trying to unionize it, which is one of the largest workforces in the world.
Yeah.
In the world. How powerful could that union be? And then you have this movie that comes out that's like, Amazon is just fine the way it is. They actually employ this itinerant workforce that doesn't have anything.
Right.
That,
thank you, Amazon.
To live off of the grid, which is what the little town that you see in Quartzsite is supposed to be. It's where you go after you earn your little Amazon money. If you don't want to spend it all on hotel rooms or hookups for RV parks,
right?
Well, damn it, you can go down here and live off the grid for however long you need to live off the grid, because we formed a community.
And while that may be beautiful that a community formed, I think it's a very sad state of affairs in this country where we have literally thrown away our elderly.
Yeah.
And said, bitch, if you can still work, ho, I got some work for you to do. Move these fucking boxes.
That was one of the like I kind of, there was a scene in the movie where, you know, the kind of like sort of, it's funny you said that. I thought of him as a bit of a cult leader type, kind of like the grandfather of these grandfathers. He talks about, like, you know, you're a workhorse and basically they're gonna like throw you out and turn your hose into glue, kind of, you know, a metaphor about their labor. Just I thought that like there were these moments of them kind of like touching on it, and then it would just vanish. Also, there was one thing I wanted to ask you. Well, first of all, I want to, at some point, probably not here because it's a whole other topic, but I would love to hear your thoughts on how these cities could effectively actually be helping unhoused people. And
you mean the vacant cities with all those built houses and a whole infrastructure of like plumbing and electricity?
Like the suburbs outside of Vegas or whatnot. But more like I would love to hear more, because I feel like that's just something that people just don't really want to actually do anything about, and that's more of the issue than the ability to make it happen, if that makes sense to you.
I wonder if they're two, and I don't know off the top of my head, and I'd have to ask someone that actually knows, but I think sometimes those places, like for example Empire, just using Empire, I think it's probably too remote, and I think all the resources probably got used up. So even if you were to say, hey, we'll stick these people here, I don't know what they would do for work.
Yeah,
I don't know how you'd handle the infrastructure, unless you just wanted some weird elderly town. I mean, they, you know, I guess maybe you're right. They do exist, these cities of the elderly.
Oh, I meant like back when we were talking about like the whole like war on bathrooms from like, no, I jumped back in time because I just wanted to flag that as something I would love to hear more about at some point.
I was very particular because I also watch a lot of horror movies, and there was a horror movie I've seen called Rest Stop, and Aaron Goforth can attest to this. I don't stop at rest stops. I'm terrified of rest stops. Truck stops I'll stop at. Walmart's, of course, I'll stop at, but as far as like rest stops, I don't do in general.
Should I not go to rest stops?
You know, real talk, some of them are real fucking dangerous.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Okay, I don't know anything about the rest stop. I feel like I've heard of horror stories about like beach bathrooms, but I feel like sometimes like
there's showers there.
If there's a shower, does that mean don't enter?
I mean, there's just showers there, so I mean, you can, some beach bathrooms.
You're bouncing around between insider like hacks and good information to murder spots, and I'm like a little bit like unsure.
I've always said like
rest stops, murder, bathroom showers, clutch.
Rest stops freak the shit out of me because they can be real in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And especially driving through places like Texas.
Yeah. I've never been to Texas. Man.
Oh, you're not missing much. It's really big and there's a lot of nothing.
Don't let David Griscom hear you say that.
I'll tell David Griscom his place. He knows. It's really big. There's a lot of nothing.
When you have a speed revive socialism in Texas.
Have at it.
Yeah.
When you can go 85 miles an hour on the freeway, that means there's a lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Until you get suddenly stopped by very scary Border Patrol type.
I've been stopped by the Border Patrol, actually.
Okay. I feel like I've derailed us into a million different fragmented conversations, but one thing I did want to touch on briefly with this whole Nomadland van life thing is my boyfriend's like biggest fantasy is like living in a van, traveling around like for fun, like not like just like as like a means of like being able to kind of like camp and like go and like, you know, he's really into the like the van life. And I'm kind of into it now because, you know, my brother passed away very suddenly in July from a massive blood clot. And I found out that I have one of the genetic mutations he had, and
Ooh.
flying is really not great. So I'm sort of like, and I have family back east, and the idea of like traveling via a van to get back east instead of a car is definitely appealing, and like, you know, stopping places. But this is becoming very, very glamorized, if that's a word, for young people. And I wonder if there is some through line here too of also young people not being able to afford houses or rent, and like, oh, how cute is it to live in a van? And that I feel like was part of the it was sort of like van life for the older people. Like the aesthetic of it. And
there was a van hipster culture that we ran into, I want to say in about 2012, 2013. And those are some people that actually gave us some pointers, actually, because that was one of the coolest vans I had ever seen, was a younger person's van that they had really tricked out to make it where it literally looked like, and these aren't conversion vans in the sense of they had all the space. So people literally, you know, ripped out seats and built things in them. And these people had built a bed, but under the bed were like all these drawers.
cabinets.
And had the cool shit. You said evidence?
Oh yeah, and there's evidence. No, I said cabinets.
Cabinets. No, they
What they need to know is the evidence that's under the
they
van.
had evidence.
They're
for murder.
trafficking children for Hillary Clinton.
Well, I will say this: if you want to go in a van,
it's happening.
Let
it's
your
like not
dude,
a choice. It's
let your
happening.
dude drive more than you, because women that drive in certain interstates are usually drug mules. And
oh yes,
white
I've
women,
heard this. Did you tell me this?
Yeah, I believe I told. I
you
mean,
or I
if someone
listened
told
on your
you,
show.
I've said it on the show. You'll get your van ripped apart. They'll
Okay.
rip that shit apart and give no fucks and then walk away. I saw so many white girls on the side of the road trying to go home, getting their shit ripped apart. It's like, oh, you went alone. Or for
that
me,
would have been a crazy thing to happen in the movie. You should have been a consultant.
They didn't want to hear anything I had to say about that movie.
By the
again,
way, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I'm
Go
a
ahead.
big interrupter. It's a huge problem.
That's fine.
Please, I need to shut up.
The wait, what were we talking about again? I just lost my train of thought.
The women that go alone and get their vans ripped apart.
Yeah, if you're driving along like the 10, and once you hit Arizona, you will probably get stopped if they see you driving.
Okay.
And your dude is a browner man, correct?
He's Iranian, but he looks Aryan.
Okay.
I don't know.
You'll get fucked with, and it can fuck up your day.
Yeah.
Because they can fuck with you. We've gotten pulled over for a cop had pulled someone over, and we slowed down and moved over a lane, but the cop said we didn't slow down enough, and he pulled us over to yell at us.
Also, to clarify, he's obviously browner than I am. I mean, it'd be outrageous.
Then you should make sure he does a lot of the driving.
Make
sure he does a lot of that driving on certain southerly routes.
Okay.
If you're going up north, you're fine generally.
Okay. This is good information.
It's a good look. If people want to get in a fucking van and drive cross country, I can tell you where to go. I can even probably hook you up with good people to talk to as you go to certain towns and states and places.
I know Persians are Aryan. I know. I see the comment. I knew I was going to get in trouble with a fact check there.
See, get me in trouble, Lisha.
I was going to step it out and then whatever.
But it's, it's a great way to see the real America. If you want to see the real America.
If you want to see the real America.
That's what interstates are for, is to bypass the real America.
I had a question for you. When I was going to interrupt, what was I going to say? Oh, I don't think that anyone who made that film intentionally was trying to do these things. That's kind of what's frightening about it to me, is I think that they just authentically have drank the Kool-Aid so deeply that this is what comes out.
Whoever wrote the screenplay, it definitely did, because again, I'm gonna end this show, because we've been talking for almost an hour, with an interview that the author did on Chris Hedges' On Contact show. And when you hear her speak about the book, you're going to look back at that movie and be like, that's not even the same story. Because she's telling the truth of the horrors of Amazon, the horrors of working at National Park Services. She literally talks about people that are in the freaking movie, who I hope, got paid. And the movie just glorifies poverty and wraps it in American exceptionalism, in the sense that, and it all culminated in this scene for me, when the woman is staying with her sister. Like you said, she needed money. She got on the bus. She went to go stay with her sister that was well-to-do. And her sister goes, you were always the different one.
You're the exceptional one, hon.
You and I was like, are you really? Like, this is where we're going with this? And she's like, I just can't stay here because, your husband's a realtor and he's kind of a dick. Blah, 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 blah. That for me was the whole, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is the whole movie. Everything else is just really long and I don't need to see it, but I did watch it twice.
It's going to be a weird award season, because we're going to have all these films that are like half stories sweep and bring a lot of attention to, like, I'm sure, like, I mean, I've already seen it. The amount of people that are like, becoming knowledgeable about the Black Panthers from, before the film came out, or, the fact that old people work in Amazon warehouses, or like these half narratives are, I don't know. It's
Amazon hired old people.
It's actually really nice. They wear roller skates and they just sort of hang with their friends to get to like one end of the warehouse to the other, and
they live in an old city in the desert. It's a city of old people. They're all happy in the desert.
Nice, yeah.
No, this is all a failure. These are all failures of society. Like the Fred Hampton movie. And I've gone on. I'm not going to go on too much about that, but the guy that actually wrote it.
Oh, someone's calling out my take.
They're saying thank you.
No, so they don't think it was a deliberate expectation cleansing. As someone who works in entertainment, I think that there's way too much. I know the CIA makes films and influences films. Absolutely. I'm not saying that that's not a thing, but in terms of like these independent films, like a lot of people who work in entertainment just have like really basic neoliberal, like normie ideas. It's not like as a conspiracy. Like I've been in these rooms and I've been in conversations where it's like people authentically just think that like, Bernie's corrupt and takes money from the NRA and like might be a Soviet plant, and that's it. Like, Warren's really good and she's, a woman who's like fought, and these are just the ideas that permeate these spaces. Most people go to certain private colleges. Like it's less of like this great conspiracy and more of just like this insular. It's just kind of like very privileged, narrow lens. And I think with this film, I think that just was the filmmaker, or the writer really just couldn't imagine truly being no van, no $2,500 backpack on your back.
Like that's what he got from the book, right? We have to keep in mind that's what these people get from the book. Like again, for Judas and the Black Messiah, the story from the guy that wrote it, and I have to share the email that I got from someone that is related to the actual guy that wrote it. That's like Shaka King only wrote like 50 words in there. They had a little outline, but a man named Will, I forget his name, he actually wrote the whole script. And the original script was to humanize Hoover.
Whoa.
That was the original
That's the
plot.
take. But Hoover was running his own breakfast program in his suburb.
It's
Wow.
because he was like, well, Hoover, he wanted to expose the gay aspect of Hoover, and he wanted to dig a little deeper to there's rumors that Hoover was part black, and he wanted to dig into that and have it be some sort of internal conflict with Hoover on why he hated black people so much. That was the original script idea, and then it got changed to The Black Departed, which is pretty much what we get with
Right.
Judas and the Black
That's funny
Messiah.
you call it that. Yeah.
Told from the perspective of the snitch. Now we have another movie in the works about Hoover infiltrating oh god, I can't think of his name, Marcus Garvey, told from the perspective of Hoover.
Okay. I wanted to say one thing about what's the name of The Black Messiah? What's the name of the Fred Hampton film? I had an epiphany after we talked the other day that if they had cast William, what's the informant's name? Bill.
William O'Neill.
As like, wasn't he like 17 or 18
17.
Yeah. So don't you think the whole film would have been really different if we had seen like this like young kid being manipulated? Yep. But instead, everyone's performance was amazing. This is no critique of anyone's acting or whatever. It was just like we see like this confident man who like has like this sort of like carjack hustle, like he's an embedded criminal that like black on black crime, and then we see him like get his own. But I really think the whole film actually could have been interesting because I mean it's a tragic story. He commits suicide. I mean it's like a dark story. It is. I'm not justifying what he did by, of course.
It doesn't touch on him like drug use. It just
right.
it goes, hey, this guy had this internal conflict doing this thing, which he really didn't. Again, my take on snitching is it just happens. I can drop you off in the hood right now, and there's somebody telling on somebody else, maybe not to the police, but they're telling on somebody to gain some sort of ground. Somebody at your job is telling on you right now.
Right.
It's just what people do, right? But to centralize a story about such an important character, and also to just not ignore totally, but kind of not show the true nature of the politics of the people is problematic. So again, with
100%.
With this movie, if I'm not showing you the true nature of what's happening to this itinerant workforce that Amazon is literally fucking recruiting, keep this one thing in mind before I go to this interview. I'm going to play a little clip before we head off on the stream. We're going for an hour. People were dying inside Amazon warehouses that were part of this elderly camper force because in the hotter states, in the summer when they were working, Amazon wouldn't roll up the doors because they were afraid of theft. So when people would pass out from heat stroke, they just kept ambulances nearby. So this is the company we're talking about, and this is the disposable labor, the new disposable labor force that we're looking at, which is a disposable labor force that you're trying to show in this bright, shining light, which I found mildly disgusting. And Frances McDormand is going to win awards for this. The director, this is her first major studio film. She's going to get a bunch of backpats. I believe it won a Golden Globe.
She's a friend of a friend. Should I try and get her on the show?
I would be interested in her take, but I also understand that people aren't trying to fuck off their whole life.
Yeah.
Right? Like you say one thing about like, hey, I took the bag. Like I told everybody on this show, you see certain people on this show, I took the bag.
I think it's like, I honestly, the more I've gone into the matrix of all this, I'm not saying there isn't sinister thought out like attacks. And I'm not saying that there isn't like a serious war on our brains to normalize this. But I think at this level of like independent filmmaking, it's really just people's, like their brains have also been infiltrated. Like they're not necessarily generating it.
Hell yeah. Again, read the interview from the writer of Judas and the Black Messiah. And I think that puts into, maybe I'll post it on the This Is Revolution Facebook page so you guys can see it. It really puts into perspective the take. And the email that I had got from someone that's related to the guy that doesn't like him actually said, this is a rich kid that
was a failed writer in LA, failed comedy writer. He's very apolitical, and he was trying to cash in on Black Lives Matter.
Sure.
During George Floyd. That's all of it. And he serendipitously met up with Shaka King and the Lucas brothers. That's what it boils down to. There's no sinister plot, like Lisha says. These are just people with shitty politics. If you think Hollywood has a bunch of Susan Sarandons walking around trying to make woke films, I have bad fucking news for you.
It also just like it also, and you can get into like the PMC, like, you know, education, credentials, and all of that, but like there are just only a certain amount of people that know how to write in this very specific way that's mandated to like execute. It's like it's just this skill set, and the very few people get this very specific training, and then the studio's like, we need someone to take this like thing and turn it into this like, you know, formatted, structured thing that we want, because this is the only way we shoot things, and that becomes a smaller and smaller list of people. So Homeboy was probably like,
oh, I got a message from someone he was like, I hate this fucking guy and I hate this fucking movie, and he hit me up because Jacobin had posted a review of Judas and the Black Messiah praising it.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. And I posted the show I did with my co-host and very good friend, who I have to call when this is over, Pascal Robert. I posted our review of the movie, and that guy responded to me in a personal message and said, "Hey, this is the guy." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't really get messages like this." And he got kind of in depth with some things, and then showed me this interview that the writer did that I posted somewhere, and another fellow podcaster was like, holy shit, he's not lying. This guy, the guy actually said it. We were trying to originally make Hoover the person that you feel some sort of sympathy for.
Yeah.
So
I mean, people just have bad politics, and then it's just like this
bad politics.
It's like it's such a like entertainment thing. You know, I think I joked with you the other day, like, oh, I'm gonna write a script where, you know, someone gets ICE or gets COVID at an ICE detention center from the point of view of the guard. Like it's such a like thing of like, oh, how do we subvert the story? How do you flip the narrative? How do you find the new way in? And that's become such a fetish that like people just like completely lose sight of like the thing, because it's so like fun to be like, oh, but it's told from the, you know, child that can't talk, or, you know, whatever.
What people want to hear. One of the most long running shows on television is Law and Order. They are spinning off like the 5th show of Law and Order. Law and Order, what is it called? Organized Crime, right? The 4th or 5th spinoff that I can count off the top of my head of Law and Order. I'm sure there's even more, because the show is fucking international. When I went to the UK, there was Law and Order UK. I was like, you got to be shitting me. That's told from the perspective of the police and the prosecutors. If you've ever seen a real grand jury, and when you understand how grand juries work, if you watch Law and Order and all you know about grand juries is what you've seen on TV, you may think grand juries are some like, oh man, ooh, what's the prosecutor going to do? Do you know the fucking rules in grand juries? They're insane. They're made to prosecute people for things. That's what they're designed for. Prosecutors have all the fucking power. You watch Law and Order, they're like, can we get the jury to indict? I mean, he doesn't get to have his lawyer there. He can't have any evidence to the contrary. Ooh.
See, that's the manipulation, because then it's like, okay, then the consultant comes, who's a representative of like the local police force or the court, and they come to set and they say, this is how it works. And the writer's like, okay, this is the credentialed person. They're saying this is how it works. And then that's what goes into the script. It's like, it's kind of like ridiculously simple how this stuff happens. It's not, there's no like, meet me at 3:00 at the payphone in the corner.
It really isn't. I think if people could see for like a small second how the people that are writing these scripts are not what do you say? Police procedures are a perfect example of normalizing class war. I agree wholeheartedly.
Police procedurals, dark. Yeah, I don't.
You know,
I don't
since
fuck with police
the days
procedurals.
Well, since the days of the shows like, well, this is before your time, Leash, but days of shows like Hill Street Blues. And I'm not even talking like the Starsky and Hutches and the Clint Eastwoods. I'm talking about the shows that showed the gritty, regular cop dealing with the ne'er-do-wells of said urban environment, especially New York. And then when you look at those shows and then juxtapose that to certain tough on crime laws that came about at around the same time, especially in the mid 80s, leading up to 94. And then when we look at this movie here, Nomadland, that comes off the heels of, I want to say, a New York Times best-selling book that literally is devoid of whatever the book was talking about, as far as this is a rising population in this country that we should be concerned about and that we need to pay attention to, because this is a fucking problem.
Yeah. I
It's
need to
not
read
a
the book.
problem. Yeah, the movie, not a problem. You can fucking get in your van,
Right.
and there's an open road for you to see. And as long as these major corporations are there, because ultimately that's all you work for is major corporations, well, then you'll be fine until you just fucking roll over and die.
Monsanto and Amazon got you back. Enjoy the view. Yeah, I don't know. I just had a flashback of my writing partner and I being asked to like have a take on like, yeah, it was like I think it was a cop, not procedural. It was probably like I just remember we're in this office and it was like, you go in and you have these meetings and they kind of tell you say what you're working on and they kind of say like, this is our slate, this is what we're working on. And they go, oh, you might be right for this. So we're looking for writers for this. And like at first you're just so stoked to be in the door. You don't really even like think that much about it. You don't think things will move forward. But I remember this like executive asking us like if we'd like to, help them flesh out this like, cop, it was like a female cop and a gag, it's so focused on the identity politics. It's unbelievable. And I remember just like right then there just being like, nope, that's not what we're going to do. And, but I have that reference point. I think a lot of people would just be like, yeah, great. I need a job. I'm happy to do this. And there's not even like a agenda or political awareness. It's just like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting if like the cop had like a niece who was gay and there's some like I'm not even like, I know it's kind of like reductive stupid joke, but like it really is like that. It's not. And then you're also like on a deadline and lots of times you don't even have like final say over final cuts. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm like both like so critical and so annoyed at how a lot of things are made. And then also have empathy because at the end of the day, it's Netflix, it's Hulu. It again comes back to these big companies. I mean, Amazon themselves is a huge, content creator.
I'm sure they had some finance dollars involved in this movie too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was on Hulu, so I thought for like a second it was maybe going to be critical of Amazon because, they're a little, but I think one hand washes the other. So
I was blown away by the pro Amazon propaganda. Like I've never
disgusting. It was literally disgusting. They're like at lunch talking about their tattoos. It's like,
this is my
you have
favorite
time for
Morrissey
lunch?
tattoo right here. And as you can see, tattoos cost money. Ergo, Amazon pays well.
That's why I have 4 sleeves, one on both legs and both arms. No,
I was like, are you fucking serious? So let me play this clip. I'm going to play a short clip of the actual writer of the actual.
Oh, can I plug something?
Please.
Because is this goodbye and then we're out?
Yeah.
Okay. I think a few of you commented with your condolences. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I recognize some of your names. I'm gonna do like a podcast series about Michael's life and work. And I'm officially starting it on Sunday. It's gonna be on our Patreon at first. I'll probably have some episodes available on YouTube, and it's called The Brief and Wondrous Life of Michael Brooks. And then we also have our final tribute panel airing tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. And that's going to be a left spirituality panel. And Marianne Williams is on it. So that's exciting.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. I'm done. I've plugged.
That's some big shit. All I can plug is I'll be doing this tomorrow at the same bat time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, with my co-host Pascal Robert. And tomorrow we're going to have on Professor Asia Leeds, who is an expert on the Black diaspora in Central and South America. And we're going to be talking about that. A friend of mine says, where did I get this really nifty Robotech shirt, which is a show that came out probably 7 years before Lisha was born. It's a cartoon. eBay.
I'm getting distracted by all the comments. I don't know how you stay focused.
I try to look into the camera and give you blue steel.
Okay.
But all you get is black pessimism. So I'm gonna end with that. So again, this is a first time doing this on a Monday. I would like to do it again and do more music and movie stuff and how pop culture relates to the broader picture. So if Lisha wants to come back, I would love to do this again. We blew through an hour.
I'd be happy to come back. Hopefully my takes aren't too normie or PMC oriented for our viewers. I'm still waking up from my Obama fog, as I call it.
So maybe I should play this, but I'm not gonna. So we did a show, me, Jean Bajlan, Kuberzinski, Pascal. We did a long and Marcus from the Left Flank Vets. We had a very long show on Saturdays. Our long show. We fuck around on Saturday. I hit people up and get surprise people to come on. And it was a serious show, but I had to fuck with people because there's a new Superman in town, Lisha.
Oh, I watched it. Yeah. I watched the video. It was hilarious.
That is a real thing. Black
Obama Superman
is a real thing. And I couldn't stop laughing when I first saw it. And when we finally did it on the show, everybody, that's the most fun I have doing this is when I get to do silly shit like that with these people. And also, by the way, Lisha, can you say hi to my daughter, Jayla Miles?
Oh, hi, Jayla. I thought she was gonna walk in the room. I got confused.
No, my daughter is a grown ass woman.
Is a grown woman. You have a young son. I flipped from hello, Jayla.
Jayla is grown as hell, and I love
That's
her.
That's so cool. Your family's all in here. I love that.
I would love to talk about Brazil because there was a show I watched in Brazil when I was there on Brazilian Netflix about some newscaster that got murdered on live TV or some shit.
I'm not laughing at the newscaster being murdered. I'm laughing at me thinking Jayla was a child and then feeling embarrassed. And then realizing that I was smiling as you said a newscaster was murdered on live TV.
No, she's forever my little girl whenever I see her, even though she's 20, I'm going to be 23 this year and lives with her amazing boyfriend.
I have to center part if she's 23. The young people have said the millennial side part and we've been shamed.
So my mom and daughter and also little son, if he's awake right now, are probably all watching.
Nice.
So I will see you guys all later, and I want to give you guys this cool clip. Hold on 1 second, and I'll cue this up. I think it's pretty good, and we'll watch a little bit of it, and then I'll do what I usually do and shut it off when it's getting good.
Welcome to On Contact.
Can you hear that, Lisha?
Today we discuss America's elderly itinerant workforce with Jessica Bruder.
It's pretty ugly out there, and for a lot of people who thought they'd figured it out for retirement and put something away, or for their counterparts who never were able to put something away because wages were so low, there was this perfect storm that happened after the recession that left a lot of people struggling for a new solution, and they figured if they could cut their housing costs, housing is our biggest expense for just about everybody, and get out on the road, that maybe they could have a go at something resembling a middle-class life on wheels.
On Contact with Chris Hedges. I'm joined today by Jessica Bruder, a journalist who reports on subcultures and economic justice. For her most recent book, Nomadland, Surviving America in the 21st Century, she spent months living in a camper van, documenting the life of elderly, itinerant Americans who gave up or lost traditional housing and now travel from job to job as temporary workers. The project spanned 3 years and more than 15,000
Doesn't his voice
miles
just
of
make the
driving
movie
from
sound
coast
like
to
a different
coast
movie?
and from
Like how
Mexico to the
sad and
Canadian
doomy
border.
he's sounding?
Jessica teaches
Well,
at
even
Columbia
just the
Journalism
photos from the first clip were
Thanks for
so
having me.
compelling and upsetting.
Camper Force.
Right?
Explain what that is.
Camper Force is a labor unit that Amazon put together literally months after the housing collapse. So it's been around since 2008, although it didn't get its name till a year later. And essentially what they do is recruit RVers, van dwellers. I knew one guy who did it living out of a tent to report to RV parks surrounding their warehouses and do primarily pick and pack labor in the months going up to Christmas, which they call peak season.
And we're talking pretty large numbers, I think 120,000 or something.
I don't have the exact numbers because they're actually cagey about it, but the numbers of temps hired by Amazon in that time is absolutely massive. Camper Force, when I spoke with them and did get one number, it was probably in the single-digit thousands because they have such a giant temp workforce, and this is just kind of one tool that they use to staff up.
And the people you write about are 50s, 60s, 70s.
And some 70s.
Very similar histories, which are?
Lots of people were devastated during the Great Recession. Some people had their savings wiped out. Many lost equity in their houses that they planned to retire on and found themselves kind of cast out into a very ageist workplace where federal minimum wage is still at $7.25 an hour, where housing prices are such that, you know, right now there are only 12 counties in one metro area where a full-time minimum wage worker can afford a one-bedroom at what's considered fair market rent. So it's pretty ugly out there, and for a lot of people who thought they'd figured it out for retirement and put something away, or for their counterparts who never were able to put something away because wages were so low, there was this perfect storm that happened after the recession that left a lot of people struggling for a new solution, and they figured if they could cut their housing costs, housing is our biggest expense for just about everybody, and get out on the road, that maybe they could have a go at something resembling a middle-class life on wheels.
And you have companies like Amazon, you went to the sugar beet harvest, the U.S. Forest Service, that preys on this very vulnerable workforce.
Yeah, these people are basically plug-and-play labor. They show up with their houses, they don't complain, they don't organize. Most of the jobs are at will, so they can be terminated without cause or notice. And it's just, yeah, it's a pretty flexible workforce. It's an employer's dream, and in my mind, very vulnerable.
And we should note that since 2008, when we talk about job creation, these are the kinds of jobs when we, that largely have, quote unquote, been created in the new economy. You worked in the Amazon warehouse for a week, and you also interviewed a lot of people. Talk a little bit about, because the working conditions are horrific.
The working conditions were really bizarre, and consider as well that this is a warehouse that has robots. This was the warehouse.
They're also huge, too.
They're massive.
Like, what'd you say, like 13 football fields or something?
Oh, it's absolutely, it's staggeringly large. And they've got robots now, so the robots are carrying all the shelves around. They look like giant Roombas. And everybody's saying, okay, well, this is better for workers. But what it really means is workers have to do more stretching and reaching and pulling because they do more picks per hour.
Explain what that is.
Absolutely. So
You do in the book. But.
Thank you. Yeah, so basically,
I can't believe none of this
a
was
lot of the jobs involve the
None
Amazon
of this is in the
robots
movie, by the
bringing
way.
you gear.
Everything you're
You
hearing this
either
woman
pull
say
it
is
out
not in the
because
movie.
it matches an order.
I also
or
laughed
in my
because
job,
I read
which
the
was quality control,
PMC on
you pull it out.
PMC violence.
So maybe your hand's counting 130 AMC gift cards or 2 boxes of patchouli, which was something it kept sending me over and over.
Sex toys apparently
Sex
were very
toys.
popular.
Yeah, I was really worried that before I left the Amazon warehouse, I would not have encountered any sex toys and I wouldn't have had a real Amazon experience, but I did right before I left. It was a relief. So people are basically taking these objects, sorting them, putting them back on the shelf, or sorting them and putting them in a package for shipment.
We're talking about 10-hour workdays,
Correct.
all sorts of repetitive strain injuries.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about and walking like up to 13 miles.
Yeah,
Talk a little bit about the conditions themselves.
Sure.
And there was even a moment in the book where the temperatures at one warehouse, if I have this right, reached, and they wouldn't open the doors to air it out. They just put an ambulance outside for when people passed out. But talk a little bit about.
Yeah, so actually my interest in this program